Hello YouTube, it's Town here, and today we're gonna be taking a trip down memory lane in order to talk about one of the most disgustingly horrific creations to ever plague television when it comes to horror. For children. Ever since I was a young lad, I always had a strong fascination with the horror genre. Whether it was amazing cartoons like Mighty Max, Scooby-Doo, or Tales from the Crypt Keeper, toys like Mad Balls or Mighty Max Again, video games like Resident Evil and Dino Crisis, if it was horror, I loved it. However, out of all of the terrifying properties I engaged with as a child, none of them came close to what I consider to be my favorite horror creation of all time: Goosebumps. Now, unless you have been living under a rock for the past 30 years, or unless you're too young to actually remember or know about them, Goosebumps was a series of magnificent horror books for children, talk about an oxymoron there, written by the legend that is Robert Lawrence Stein. The books were very well known for their weirdly creative and very often surprisingly dark stories, and they always had a twist at the end, which was definitely one of the things that made them so engaging. Goosebumps quickly became incredibly popular with kids like myself and sold an obscene number of books, which naturally led to its expansion to a variety of other media like collectible cards, video games, and movies. That being said, none of those things even came remotely close to the masterpiece that is today's topic, and that is none other than the Goosebumps TV show. The Goosebumps TV show came out sometime in the mid-90s, and what it did was that it took stories out of the book series and turned them into 20-minute episodes, which, for the time, was an insanely cool concept that, surprise surprise, got every single fan of Goosebumps incredibly excited. Now, what was interesting about said series was how often it towed the line between what would be appropriate television for children and what would probably be more fitting for adults, which made it even more amazing to watch as a kid. The reason for that is the fact the show came out back at a time where media hadn't really nailed down what constitutes suitable content for children, back when you could sometimes wonder how certain things made it in front of the eyes of kids. It was like a truly hilarious wonderland of, will this traumatize a child? Bah, let's get it on television and see. Now, while many of the episodes were on point with what you would expect from a children's horror story, with a lot of them plagued by bad acting and, at times, stories that were a bit nonsensical, there were quite a few of them which truly did an incredible job as short horror flicks that made you think, that feels more like an actual horror thing for adults. However, out of the 70-something episodes the series aired, there was one so disgustingly disturbing, so heinously terrifying, so magnificently inappropriate that when it first aired, I didn't manage to actually complete watching it because I was scared shitless and finished it a few years later when I was somewhat older. And this, my friends, is the episode we're gonna be talking about today, an episode called The Girl Who Cried Monster. This episode was based on the Goosebumps book of the same name, which to this day I consider to be one of the most horrific stories written for the book series, while also featuring one of its most unexpected twist endings, which does require of you to turn off your brain for a moment, but still, completely unexpected and horrifying. In addition, the episode boasts a couple of the most disgustingly dreadful scenes I have ever seen as a kid, which was also why I had decided to stop watching back during the first time I saw it. So, dear watchers, follow me down this dark road as we examine one of the most disturbing episodes to have ever plagued the genre of horror for children. The protagonist here is a girl named Lucy, who's kind of an asshole since she loves scaring her younger brother Randy with tall tales about all kinds of monsters lurking about. We start with Randy throwing a ball in some undergrowth, and when he goes to get it back, Lucy appears, with her latest scary story being that of a creature called the razor-toothed toe biter, which is fitting given that both of them are barefoot. She goes to try and get the ball with her foot and, in a twist of fate, starts screaming for her brother to get away since the monster got her, which makes Randy scream like a little girl and run away into the house. To no one's surprise, it turns out Lucy was playing a joke on him, which causes her mother to politely ask her to leave her brother alone and piss off to the local library so they can get some quiet around the house. Lucy obliges, and it is there that we meet the town librarian, a solemn man named Mr. Mortman, as well as a young boy named Aaron, who is introduced with the most hilarious voice ever.
Hey Lucy, what are you getting?
God damn it, I'm a bad person. Anyway, as it turns out, Lucy has been doing a lot of reading and is returning her latest book, which she hated. She proceeds to borrow Frankenstein because she loves monsters, and when Aaron claims that it would be cool if monsters were real, Mr. Mortman rebuffs him by saying that people prefer being scared in movies rather than in real life, before ominously stamping Lucy's book for checkout. Foreshadowing perhaps? On her way back to her house, Lucy talks to Aaron about how weird she finds Mr. Mortman to be, before suddenly remembering that she forgot her rollerblades back at the library and ditching the boy to go retrieve them. She reaches the foreboding library just as it closes, but decides to enter anyway. She finds her rollerblades shortly after and is about to leave when she hears Mortman talking endearingly to something. Lucy sneaks close and discovers that the man is talking to a collection of live tarantulas, which he proceeds to feed with a handful of crickets. Just as we start to get a bit unsettled, he grabs another handful and goes on to eat them himself before suddenly transforming to a snail-eyed monstrosity. What the hell? God, just look at him eating those things. Oh, I wanna throw up. Oh, disgusting. Anyway, it's around that moment that Lucy decides to finally get the hell out of there, and we watch her storm out the dark building as Mortman's growls reverberate in the distance, unaware of her presence. Lucy gets home and stressfully explains what she saw to her family, but to no one's surprise, nobody believes her due to her past lies, which frustrates her to no end, but you know what? You deserve it, you little shit. She proceeds to call Aaron and explain the situation to him in hopes that he'll believe her, but when he also expresses disbelief, she decides to get proof of her claim in the form of photographs. The next day she returns Frankenstein, which she apparently read at lightning fast speed, and has a very on-the-nose conversation with Mortman about monsters and whether he thinks they exist, as she stares at him with the most pissed-off glare imaginable, to which he philosophically replies that everyone has a bit of a monster in them. She then goes to leave, but proceeds to hide between the rows of books before doing a hilarious double back to observe the man and then hide again. Lucy makes a show of opening and closing the main entrance to sell the deception of her leaving, then sneaks across the bookshelves and once again watches as Mortman feeds his spiders. The man proceeds to transform, but this time picks up a spider instead of the crickets, preparing us for the most disgusting scene yet as Lucy fumbles inside her backpack for the camera in order to immortalize it. In what is one of the most gut-churning scenes I have ever seen, Mortman goes on to devour the tarantula alive as fluids trickle down his chin, sealing off the deal by licking his chops. Lucy manages to take the money shot, but the camera sound alerts the monster to her presence, leading to a chase as she rushes across the dark corridors of the library with Mortman on her trail. All seems lost as the labyrinthine nature of the bookcases leads to the girl getting cornered by the monster, but in a completely stupid and highly improbable attempt at escaping, Lucy manages to slip past Mortman by crawling under his legs and out the front door as the man yells at her to come back, which I suppose is something he thought she would do after everything that has happened up to this point. In any case, Lucy gets back home and tells Aaron everything over the phone, at which point the boy reminds her that Mortman knows where she lives due to him having her information from her library card. Shitting bricks from that realization, Lucy runs down the stairs in order to leave the house, but lo and behold, the guy is already at her doorstep. He asks to come in, but Lucy refuses as she stupidly reveals that her parents are not home yet, a lie she tries to retcon unsuccessfully. Mortman states that he just came by to drop off her backpack, which she had left back at the library. He makes a few more arguments in an attempt for her to let him in, but eventually relents and just drops the bag at the doorstep before leaving. Her parents return shortly after, but once again dismiss her worries about Mortman wanting to harm her after she tells them that he followed her home. They proceed to drive her to the photo store at her request in order to reveal the pictures she took, but unfortunately for her, she drops them on her way out and is promptly intercepted by Mortman, whom her parents go on to invite over for dinner in order to get to know him better given how much Lucy has been talking about him. Mortman gracefully accepts the invitation, adding an ominous comment about how it has been quite some time since he has had a home-cooked meal. To Lucy's dismay, the picture proves to be useless when she shows it to her mother the following night, since Mortman is not visible in it for reasons, I guess. To make matters worse, the doorbell rings, meaning the man has finally arrived for dinner. Mortman is escorted inside the house by Lucy's parents, but sees no food whatsoever having been served. He goes on to inquire about what they'll be having for dinner, and in a completely bonkers twist that comes out of left field, the parents say that he is going to be dinner before revealing themselves to be horrific monsters that proceed to devour him alive in front of their kids. Turns out the whole family, including Lucy and her brother, are monsters themselves, though she and Randy can't yet transform. The reason why her parents didn't believe her about Mortman was that it has been a long time since another monster has come to town, which is a completely stupid explanation that I'll get to in a moment. As the family relaxes, they notice a new monster stalking them from the window, which turns out to be Aaron in a mask. And when they tell him he just missed dinner and he asks what's for dessert, there's a brief moment when the parents make it seem as if they'll eat him before subverting expectations by stating that dessert will be cherry pie, a revelation that sends the whole family laughing like a bunch of psychopaths. The end. I still remember the visceral reaction I had the first time I watched the spider eating scene back when I was a kid, which made me storm out of the room in horror. I have to admit it was very well shot, what with the fluids trickling down Mortman's chin and the tarantula squirming. It just felt very realistic in the eyes of a 9-year-old. They also did an awesome job with his makeup. I mean, there are shots where it looks as if his flesh is pulsing, which was fantastically disturbing. It wasn't until a few years later that I built the courage to rewatch the episode, at which point I also saw the absolutely mental twist ending, which was new to me since I hadn't read the book yet. Now, this is one of those twist endings that are amazing if you turn off your brain and take it at face value just for the shock factor, but completely falls apart the moment you start applying logic to it. For example, why do the parents keep being so dismissive of Lucy and telling her that this monster thing she keeps talking about is just a phase when they themselves are monsters and the whole family knows about it? When Randy runs terrified to his mother at the start of the episode, why doesn't she just say, "You know, honey, there's nothing to worry about since we actually eat monsters. So how about you stop being such a little bitch about it, you budding hellspawn?" Also, why is Lucy so terrified of Mortman, a monster that eats bugs, when she herself has no issue watching her parents devour the man whole? I mean, they're clearly much more dangerous than he is, and she probably knows about it, given that the whole eating Mortman thing doesn't really get that much of a serious reaction, neither from her nor Randy. It's just one of those stupid things where reason is thrown out the window in favor of an unearned twist that is very much awesome and will scar your childhood, but doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Also, gotta love how the parents just brutally ate somebody but are squeaky clean after the deed, like no blood or pieces of meat on their faces or their clothes. Bah, I'm overthinking it. Anyway, I just recently remembered this episode and wanted to talk about it since I consider it to have been one of the most horrifying things I watched back in the day. On that note, I'm curious to hear about your own scariest experiences when it comes to the Goosebumps TV show, so feel free to talk about them in the comments below. Until next time, stay spooky!